Hello. We're back with some password. And before we get into back into the episode, I just wanted to say oh my god, this whole scene, I don't know, it kind of got to me. It was probably why I ended it right after that whole sequence, cuz I'm just "Oh, I don't know how to feel right now." Especially when Ty hugged you. I was "Oh my god." He's so great. I'm definitely on board with the Tyson train. But yeah. We'll just get right back to it. You know how it is. Huh? When I next opened my eyes, I was in my bedroom. I had no idea what time it was or how long I'd slept, but for the first time in a few days, I had an appetite. Sitting up in my bed, I noticed a piece of paper, barely folded, placed on my bedside table. I scanned the words and smiled weakly. A note from Tyson saying that when I was ready, we could talk if I wanted. The others had left notes too. Orlando and Roswell saying that they loved me. Sal and Dean expressing their support for me, that they'll support me any way I needed. Then, simply from Haas, was an offer to talk, but punctuated with a simple apology. Wandering out from my room, it seemed as though the house was quiet. I must have really been out for a while. Everything in the refrigerator looked good, and I grabbed what seemed to be leftovers and shoveled it down. The moment I tasted it, I recognized Orlando's cooking, and it reminded me of home. Maybe not in the literal sense, but a place of comfort from far away. From this place, my head was still swimming from a flood of emotions that I'd been hit with earlier in the day, but for now I was doing all right. I know though that I wasn't going to get off that easy. Part of me wished I could gush about Dad to the others so they'd understand, but Orlando and Roswell were there so they could possibly explain how big of a deal he was to me. If not, then Tyson. He told them his side of the story after all. Oh, just getting closer to the microphone, sorry. More importantly, I couldn't hide that I'd tried to do what I tried to do twice, then what happened with Jack. And most importantly, why I'd been messing with the vault. It made me realize that unless I learned to leaned on it like a crutch, it wasn't all that useful. It wasn't really a time machine, but it had its uses. The main problem was putting it into words for the others to understand. Thankfully, with Oswin around, that'd make things a little easier. I barely understood it when he told me, but hearing it directly from him should help. There was no reason I could think of it to be as tired as I was all the time, but maybe I'd become so used to feeling this way that I never thought it could be the reason. Not that I'd suddenly become a normal person like Sal or even Haas overnight. As I yawned, I caught some movement off to the side. Haas standing in the doorway of one of the adjacent rooms. Our eyes met for a moment before he gestured me into the side room, heading into it without warning. Oh, we haven't seen this yet. This background. That's nice. That's nice. I took a seat on one of the sofas in the room, and Haas sat just far enough away that I had my space on a separate chair. At first, he didn't say anything, seemingly thinking over his words before he broke the silence. I didn't expect it to be something that hard-hitting. I sighed out, rubbing my head. Don't get me wrong, I could only imagine what it's like, but I think I understand a little. Losing someone you're that close to, it must have been rough. Yeah, it is. He nodded slowly, shifting in his chair uncomfortably. But it's not all bad, just mostly bad. What do you mean? Well, I don't know. Ty never left. Especially in the first week he was very, I don't know, intent on making sure I was okay. Stuff like making sure I ate, bathed, even sat outside for a bit each day to get some sun. So I have that to be thankful for at least. Take it from someone who, I guess, feels the same way. The fact that he called you a brother gives me an idea of where his head might be. I know I'd do the same for my siblings if something happened. Maybe. I've never had a brother or sister, so Ty's the only thing I've got that's close. Haas nodded slowly, running his hand through his mane. When you woke up, did you read the note? Yeah, it was nice, I think. Something I wasn't used to for sure. Well, that's a plus. Oswin's been scarce since he took the syringe away. Otherwise, I'd be asking him if it was actually, well, what it said on the label. He didn't come back? Benson did, but said that Oswin had stuff he wanted to think over. Maybe the test didn't go so great, or maybe he just wanted to hear it from you directly. If it wasn't so late, I'd probably go talk to him now, 'cause I'd like to know too. So you really didn't, you know? I shook my head, and he nodded in understanding. Reaching out, he patted my shoulder, leaving his hand there for a bit. Good. I mean, we still don't know what happened, but please don't hide that serious stuff anymore. It just makes us worry about you more. Okay, but Haas, tomorrow is going to be a little hard. Hard? How? Just something Osmond told me a while back, something that probably led to everything being a mess. With the Volt? Something like that. Yeah. Just don't go breaking down again, trying to tell us. If Oswin knows about it already, just make sure he's in the room too, alright? I nodded slowly, having had the same idea as a plan. Not that it was much of one, but having some backup when I had to bring up the task he set out for me seemed like a right call. Tiredness caught me again, and I yawned, rubbing my eyes. You should get back to bed. I can only imagine how exhausted you are. Yeah, I probably should. We both stood up, and I knew that if I didn't get back to bed soon, I'd probably comfortably pass out at the moment I found somewhere nice to lay down. Hey, I'm sorry. For not just for forcing it out of you, but also just everything. I shook my head and flashed him a quick smile. It's alright. Everyone has to do it. Everyone had to do it, right? Oh, someone had to do it. Still, I'm sorry, Dave. Thanks, Haas. See you in the morning? As long as you don't sleep the day away again. I got up to my room and sighed out, resting back on the door as I closed it behind me. I'd barely been awake for it, but the day had been so long and tiring. Wandering over to the bed, I lay down in an attempt to get some more sleep. For as tired as I was, part of me wanted to stay awake, fearing another dream like the one I'd had, or maybe just waking up sad upon seeing my dad again. But despite my mind and my heart not wanting it to happen, my body needed the rest and slowly drifted off. Okay. Here again. When I opened my eyes, I knew I was dreaming. Part of me wondered why I was still having dreams this vivid, but I don't mind too much, at least not yet. I sat up in my bed, looking around my room. Seeing it again made me wonder how I'd feel once I got back home, an ache in my chest reminding me that Dad wasn't there, but maybe Mom would be. Tyson would be there for sure. I could still hear his voice in my ear, calling me brother, hugging me tight, and just being there for me. The memory of him talking to Dad before he went to work lingered, though, wondering if now I'd be considered old enough to finally know what sort of stuff they had to talk about. Finally finding myself downstairs, I looked around the room. I wanted to see Ty again, Not that it was that much of an ask given he was elsewhere in the same house, but I felt a longing I hadn't been able to shake. Ty? Looking over to the sofa, I saw him sitting up there, looking stiff. Not that he seemed to be paying attention, not to be paying me much mind, but just seeing him put me at ease. What? I frowned, realizing the problem with what I was seeing. I just wanted to see you, I think. You dork. I'm not a dork for loving you, you jerk. The words were out of my mouth before I realized it. My mind filled in Tyson's reply almost immediately, along with the rolling of his eyes and the tired sigh. I'm not gay. I know, Ty, but what if you weren't? He didn't say anything, probably because I didn't know how the real Ty would respond to something like that. Now of all times. All I know is that, I don't know, I think you're good enough if you wanted to be, you know? Sorry, I guess I just wish I could have had this, I wish I could have this talk with you in person without you getting so defensive. You know how that talk goes, though. You sure you want your heart broken? Dean's a good guy. Well, maybe. Maybe I don't love Dean, alright? You don't love Dean? Well, we're not... I mean, he's... I looked at Ty, uncertain. Dean and I weren't dating, so as much as I liked him, maybe maybe that just wasn't enough. Can we talk? In the morning, I mean. What do you think? I'd like to think you'd want to talk to me. Then guess you'll have to see it in the morning. Everything slowly faded into an inky black, my mind setting back into unconsciousness as I could rest. By the time I woke myself, I felt different. Not better or worse, just different. I wasn't even sure if I felt rested, but I knew at the very least I didn't want any more sleep. Taking a shower to wake myself up properly, I dressed in some fresh clothes and headed downstairs. As I hit the stairs, I ran into Oswin, just about to head down himself. Morning. Yeah, good morning. We descended the stairs in silence. As we reached the bottom, I fumbled for what I wanted to say. Are you upset with me? He froze in his tracks, turning slowly to face me. Should I be? Well, the needle and the bottle... I have questions, to say the least, but now's not the time for that. Then later? Of course later. You have enough on your plate as it is, although I will say I expect answers. Right, yeah, that makes sense. But I have some questions too about, well, that. What kind of questions? You said we're not getting into it now, but just be ready for me to ask some questions too. Very well. When the time comes, I'll be sure to collect you for a little chat. Together we made our way to the dining room, splitting off as I sat down with the others already at the table. Good morning. I turned to Sal, Roswell, and Haas, all seemingly unsure of how to answer. Roswell nudged both Haas and Sal before shooting me a quick smile. Morning, Dave. Sleep all right? Yeah, I slept. Man, I feel that. That's good, right? Did you need more sleep? You could go back to bed if you wanted. Right, especially with yesterday being so. He gestured with his hands, filling in the rest of the sentence. I think I'm good for now, at least. Just need to wake up some more and have something to eat. Oh, there's the boy. You name it and I'll make it, honest. Maybe just give him some space, Orlando. He's right here. He can speak for himself. Just trying to be thoughtful. It's okay, really. I don't know. Sighing out, I shook my head. Don't worry, I've got this. Sit tight, Dave. No, Ty, it's okay. What I really wanted to say is Sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. Well, to be fair, he kinda does, but that's for later. Well, okay, Orlando. I'm sorry for making everyone worry, but that well... There was silence all around when I trailed off. Breathing in deep, I resolved myself to admitting what I was sorry for without a prompt from someone else. I'm sorry I've been such a shitty friend. We're just glad you're alive. Which, all things considered, about what happened, well... Alright, maybe let's not do this over breakfast. We haven't even had coffee. He hasn't even had coffee yet. Despite me saying that I was able to manage, Ty got up, wandered over towards the kitchen, and presumably to get me something to drink. Oh, right, breakfast. Hold tight, Dave. I'll go make you something. Before I could get a word in edgewise, he was hot on Tyson's heels and disappeared into the kitchen, much as the same. Is it alright if we just take today slowly? Well, yeah, of course. I didn't have any plans after yesterday. Most of us were just waiting for me. Didn't seem right to go planning anything after you passed out. After we made sure you were comfortable in bed, we just sort of sat around sharing stories. Mostly any nice memory we had of you, just to try and lift the mood a little. Benson's been on near constant lookout for that, who he saw in the woods. I nodded slowly, the image of Jack flashing through my head. Run as fast as you can. My hands went to my head, and I cowered in the chair. I could hear his voice echoing through my head like I was back in the woods. No, I'm safe. I shut my eyes tighter, trying to block him out, but he was there. I flinched when I felt something touch my shoulder, fearing I was backed up against the tree again with his knife at my throat. Give up, Dave. Let whatever happens, happen. Dave! I was trembling, on my back on the floor with Tyson over me, holding me steady. I was breathing hard, still reeling from the thought of Jack, and my eyes were damp. Ty? I sat up and clung to him, heart beating rapidly in my chest. Just as tightly he held onto me as he guided me back to my feet and eased me back down into a chair so he could pick up the one that I'd fallen out of. Alright, who was it? Well, me, but... Snarling, Ty had advanced on Roswell, but was caught by a scruff. That's enough. He didn't mean it, Tyson. Shrugging Sal off, Ty grumbled as he threw his hands up. Fine. But give him a chance to recover first. Sorry, I didn't realize it'd provoke a reaction like that so easily. He's not around, is he? There was silence around, broken only by the sound of Orlando setting something down on the table. Broken out of my trance, the smell hit me immediately, causing me to rise from the sweet scent. Butter, cinnamon, maple syrup. At first I thought waffles before I took in another breath through my nose. French toast? Yeah, I know you like eggs, so... I must have pounced on it with a little too eagerly, almost inhaling it and barely savoring the rich goodness as it coated my tongue. Slow down or you're gonna choke. The second piece was midway in my mouth before I paused, looking around at the others. Sorry, I guess I'm just hungry. I'm gonna go make some more then. Anyone else want any? A couple of hands went up, and Ty shook his head. Give whatever I'd have to Dave. Alright, sure, I'll be back again. I'll go make myself useful. Be back soon. The two of them wandered off to the kitchen, and I resumed shoveling food into my mouth. I had a question. For whom? For Dave. Sure, what's the question? What would you like to do today? Well... I thought about it, brow furrowed. The options the mansion gave us seemed to be a fair bit, but then again, the thought of going outside was sending shivers down my spine. The only thing I had in mind really was talking to Oswin. He had questions for me, and I had questions for him. I wanted to know more about what I had found, plus where I went and what it all meant. This was his home, so he was bound to know more about what was surrounding it, right? I hadn't really thought about it. Just something later with Oswin, really. I see. Well, perhaps it'd be best to just take it easy. Rest days are important. Plenty to do inside anyway. Maybe we could just have another movie night as a group. Ty must have noticed I was frowning before realizing I was doing it, poking me suddenly. Stop frowning. I'm not frowning. I was just thinking. Right, well, how's a movie sound? Maybe. In reality, I didn't really want to be around a bunch of people. I felt ashamed for the past few days and wanted some time to think about what was to happen next. Was I still broken? I felt better and worse at the same time and didn't know how to really know if that was normal. Then, what did you want to do? Sleep, maybe, or just lay down? Ty looked at me carefully, eyes narrowing for a moment, before he seemed to clue into how I was feeling. All right. I opened my mouth to say something and then shut it again, wondering how best to approach what I wanted to talk to him about, given the dream I had. Not to mention things from the past couple days. If there was any hope of me finding out what he and Dad talked about, I'd have to ask him directly. That's assuming he'd even remember. But can I let you know later? After breakfast, maybe? I think that should be fine. I wouldn't mind watching a movie, assuming Haas isn't using the television upstairs. Better yet, why don't we watch something together? Might find something we both like. This is going to end up in anime again, isn't it? The moment you find something better than anime to watch, let me know. We can watch Tokusatsu, watch some good old Kamen Rider, some Super Sentai. Ultraman is pretty good from what I hear. I was a pretty big fan of Ultraman Urubu. Urubu? How is that pronounced? The RB, whatever. You know. And I've loved what I watched of Nexus, so, there's more than just anime in the world, Haas. There are other things, and if we watch anime, we should watch Pre-Here. Eventually, we all settled in for more French toast, and I finally got myself enough coffee. Something about it tasted different. Not bad, but different. Maybe different was just a new feeling I was going to have to get used to. Everyone seemed intent on focusing on eating, except for Tyson, who slid his plate over to me. He didn't even seem to look at me as he did it, instead fiddling with his phone while he drank his coffee. With my belly full, I yawned. There was nothing like a good meal, and breakfast was a good reminder of it. Standing there in the foyer, I'd stretched out after Orlando had offered to take my plate from me, and I looked around. From an entrance hall, it was quite big, to the point it almost seemed wasteful of the space. But the house I lived in was fairly open as well, so maybe it was just something I wasn't used to. Wandering over to the back door, I felt my fur twinge the closer I got. My eyes were locked onto the world on the other side of the door, and I couldn't bring myself to cross that last step to reach the handle. I found myself standing there fiddling with my hands and my tail tucked between my legs. Not that I wanted to go outside anyway, but there was that fear that Jack was waiting just out of sight in the trees. As I turned away from the door, I noticed Ty lingering a bit back near the stairs, just watching me. He didn't say anything to indicate he was there, instead just watching, waiting maybe for me to say something first. I can't do it. Go outside, I mean. Did you even want to? Maybe. Probably not. I I shrugged, skittering towards Tyson before I continued. I'm scared. No shit you're scared. Don't think anyone would blame you either, pup. He cut himself off, scratching the fur on the back of his neck. What I mean is I don't. Just don't go wandering out there without telling someone. Don't go out there without telling me, alright? Almost lost you once. Sorry. He approached and carefully wrapped me up in another hug. Brief, but also a tight squeeze. I felt a little better. What are you going to do here by yourself? I'm just thinking, really. I don't really know how I should be feeling, but something feels different now. Not like a bad different or good different, but just different. Ty didn't seem to understand, instead of just frowning as he watched me in the silence. What I mean is that I'm wondering if I'm still me, I guess, or what that even means after this past year and a half. This why you bailed before you could let me know if you're watching shit with Salad House? I blinked, having already forgotten that I'd said that. My bad. No shit. Good to know you're slowly getting back to normal. I don't think I really want to be around a bunch of people today, Ty. I feel embarrassed after yesterday still. He turned to go and I grabbed him quick by the arm. But can we hang out today? Just the two of us? All right, what did you want to do? I didn't get that far, but at the very least, I had a dream last night that I wanted to talk to you. What kind of dream? Not a bad one, just, I don't know, one that made me want to talk to you about stuff. He sighed, rolling his eyes. Is this about what I think it's about? Then I don't really want to rehash what we've already talked about. I nodded slowly, dropping my hand away. I understand. I'll go find someone else to hang out with to keep my mind off it. Tyson's eyes narrowed. I couldn't tell if it was because he was thinking something over or he was just suspicious of it, if I was pulling a fast one on him. Groaning, he threw his hands up before lazily letting one of them land casually on my shoulder. Fine, we'll have the talk again, but I swear, Dave, this better be the last one. I can't promise that. My reply came fast enough that it made Ty flinch, looking at me carefully. There are so many things that I barely understand, and sure, I could probably ask Dean or Orlando or Roswell or literally anyone smarter than me to explain them. Breathing in deep, I continued, shutting my eyes so that I couldn't lose my resolve, and just saying that I needed to get it off my chest. But they're not my family, and they're not you. Not only that, but because some of these things are directly about you, that I don't want what other people think when I could ask about how you feel. When I opened my eyes again, Tyson looked shell-shocked, going to say something every other second before fumbling over what specifically he wanted to say. So until I understand, I'm going to keep asking you, at the very least, because you're the older brother between the two of us, right? Help me understand what's going on. And the next moment, I had one of Tyson's hands over my muzzle, clamping it shut. His voice was brought down low, and his gaze averted somewhat. Okay, I get it. You don't have to make it such a fucking scene in the middle of the foyer. Wouldn't be surprised if the whole house fucking heard you with that echo. Easing off, he sighed as I rubbed my face. Meet me in my room in a couple minutes. I'm just gonna word up Sal and Haas that they're watching stuff on their own for however long this takes. Thanks, Ty. It's fine. Don't worry about it. See you in a bit. Ty wandered back into the dining room, but not without pausing to look at me quickly over his shoulder before disappearing out of sight. As he sorted out his plans for the day, I headed up to his room. Looking around, there was a part of me that didn't want to be in here, almost like it was forbidden ground to tread on. But in reality, the moment my eyes fell on his bed, I whined with memories of a week ago. Nothing happened, but they shouldn't have gotten that far. Another thing that we need to talk about at some point. By the time Ty came back, I was awkwardly standing in the middle of the room. Giving me a funny look, he closed the door behind him and wandered past me to sit on the bed. You coming? I'm good for now. Why the fuck are you standing there? You remember a week ago, right? Immediately his ears dropped, mood deflating. Fuck. Right. We could do this in your room if you want, or literally anywhere else if that's better. No, it's fine, I think, but that's just one of the things I don't understand. We'll get to that later, though. Carefully, I wandered over to the bed and sat down next to him, frowning. So, I had a dream last night about you. What kind of dream? Well, it was about being back home, how things would be after we get back from this, well, vacation, I guess. What do you think they'd be like? Different? Different, sure. Like, maybe I'd be dating someone, maybe not. Maybe the others would be around somehow, or maybe it'd just be you and me. Well, you know I want to sort out my shit and bail too, right? I'd forgotten about it in all honesty, making me hang my head and sigh out. Please don't leave me, Ty. If everyone leaves, then where does that leave me? Maybe you should go somewhere too. Maybe hit up the beach and have a decent vacation after this one. You like the beach. I like the beach because you and Dad were there. If neither of you are around, it just wouldn't be the same, I think. Glancing at him, I noticed him nodding slowly. Guess that's fair. Probably just a reminder that you're alone, huh? Yeah. But that's not the important part, Ty. Then what is? The past few nights they've all been dreams of Dad, but yesterday, the person I wanted to see most. I felt silly being so mushy that I felt my ears burn and cheeks go red under my fur. It was you, so I could hear it before I looked over to him, the steady thumping of his tail against the bed. Look, you said you're not gay, I get that. You then tell me you're not sure. I get that too, but is it bad that I want you to know? Is it bad that I want you to know? You sure, for you to be sure. It might not be your type. I might not be your type, and that's cool too, but just not knowing makes it hard for me to be able to know what's all right to say and what isn't okay to do, and without either, it's just very hard to do anything. Breathing in again, I felt myself getting worked up, not in a sad way, but more an annoyed way that made my words come out closer to a bark than I'd intended. Then we'd get everything going on with you and Haas, which is cool, but I feel a little jealous that he was my friend first, and I'm also happy that you have a friend now. But then I'm worried about what happened a week ago now, and people pushing me towards Dean, and you don't like Dean? Well, I don't love Dean, Ty. With how suddenly I'd replied, I wasn't aware of what I was saying until I'd almost spilled the beans. You what? Fuck, if you love someone, then damn, tell them already. Easier said than done. A few moments pass while I figure out what I want to say. In the spur of a moment, I could have just confessed right then and there that I love Ty, without being completely sure that that was the case. But as I looked at Ty, it seemed like he already knew and was struggling to find a way out of the awkward situation I'd put us in. Then, I'll tell them to back off. Wait, what? I'll tell the others to back off from trying to set you up with Dean. Easy. It took a few seconds for me to understand and I wasn't sure if Ty had missed the point or if he was conveniently giving me an out. I rubbed my face, sighing out, and slumped back onto the bed. Now I'm just not sure. I almost felt like we were at home again, laying down next to each other, just hanging out, be it on the grass on the front lawn, backyard, middle of the living room, or on my bed. Ty, why can't it just be easy to fall in love with someone and just this whole thing sort itself out? Life is shit like that, that's why. No kidding. Even the people that should love you don't always, and it sucks. That's why David ruled so much. You could probably just call him Dad, I think. The thought The thought made me smile, if a little misty-eyed. We would have probably... He probably would have been fine with it. Not until my own dad kicks the bucket, and I hope that piece of shit kneels over sooner rather than later. I already knew that Ty's dad wasn't the greatest on a lot of fronts, but hearing him say it so directly about wanting him dead was a first. That's not a nice thing to say, Ty. I don't care. He's better off dead, so he can't hurt anyone else. Don't want him even thinking of coming near you either. Was he really that bad? Like, really? Fucking, you saw the house. You saw the alcohol. First, Mom ditched me with him, and he just saw that as an excuse to make me pick up the slack and blamed me for her not being around. He was almost bellowing to the ceiling to the point I considered covering my ears. Instead, I just reached out with a hand and grabbed it tightly. He seemed content to just keep ranting, although he squeezed my hand back. He made a go at you when you came over, and most days he'll just work to get paid, then blow most of it to get drunk. I'd be dead if it wasn't for you. I didn't... He turned suddenly onto his side to face me, bringing his voice low, although there was still a notable growl in his voice. And then here I am, now fucking acting like him because I don't know how to not be a shit person when I just want people to leave me alone. I don't really understand. You know damn well what I'm talking about, Dave. Our eyes meet for the briefest of seconds before he looked away, leaving me to puzzle it out for myself. What, you almost did a week ago? It shouldn't have happened. It shouldn't have been a thing I'd consider. Like, shit. Being in your position was bad enough as it was. He trailed off suddenly, his grip on my hand easing off entirely. And he hung his head between us. I could hear him whimper softly as he seemed to be recalling something. I was only a kid. I did the only thing I knew how and sat my chin atop his head and rubbed his arm. What could I even say to that? The implication was clear as day as I feared that if I pushed for more information, I'd lose the ability I had to ignore it. The time ticked by as we just lay like this, motionless. The whimpering died down, and it almost seemed like Ty had fallen asleep until he spoke again. You should hate me for that. It wasn't a nice thing to do to me, Ty. If I told any of the others, they'd be out for blood for sure. And you haven't? Because if I did, that'd be abandoning you instead of finding out why it happened. Why you treat me that way. Ty shifted around so that he could instead place his head atop mine, forcing my nose against his neck, rather than arrange us both so we were comfortable. Didn't think you were so serious. You were serious for a few days after that. Even with the gun thing in Benson, just assumed, well, you were thinking about your dad. The Benson thing was different. Losing you as well as Dad would be too much, I think. Right? But you're a fucking idiot, Dave. You stopped me from going into the woods to get shanked and and head in yourself like you forgot. Now it was my turn to whine, but instead he just shifted a hand onto my shoulder and started rubbing my back. I'm glad neither of us ended up dead, you know. Me too. For another few moments, we just lay there until I prodded him gently in the chest. Why did you get so upset that day? That you'd resort to that? Dunno. Probably because I was scared that I'd end up hurting you. If I stuck around, maybe, or that I'd get jealous and take it out on somebody else, and you'd hate me. The fucked thing is that if you were gonna hate me, I'd rather it just be because of something I did directly to you, right? That makes sense, sure. What I don't get is why that even crossed your mind. Did you want me to hate you or something? No, that's not it. It's like we both sat up and he stretched, looking crestfallen while he rubbed his face. Thought, what's the worst thing that could happen to me? And what I could do to you? Then, if you hated me, I could make a clean split and figure myself out. Then you'd not be like worried about making sure everyone else was getting along with me too. That's kind of dumb, Ty. The fuck is that supposed to mean? That you'd think that now of all times, I'd be looking to randomly hate you just because. Hell, right now I was claiming that I was trying to save your life and even willing to strip down to the backyard to keep you safe. Ty, come on. It's not that evidence enough of how important you are to me that I don't know what it is. My mouth suddenly felt dry, rasping out for my breath, and I pulled the brakes on my train of thought. Well, it took me by surprise for sure. Do you love me? What? You know, like, at all. Where the fuck is this coming from? I don't know, everything's complicated, and I just remember things being simpler. What am I to you? A brother? Less than that? More than that? I'm gonna level with you. I don't know. I'd like to know what this feeling is, but it's scary as hell. Sometimes it's a good feeling, sometimes bad, sometimes it's just such a fucking downer that I'd rather it just not be there. Oh. Look, I know what you want me to say, but I don't really want to say it. What if I don't mean it? What if it turns out you get your hopes up and I'm just like not able to return what you feel for me? But I haven't said how I feel yet. You're not exactly subtle. Plus, I kind of know how you'd say it anyway. Ty went quiet suddenly, not even sighing out. His eyes went to the floor and his tail remained deadly still. It's one of the last things David said to me anyway. What? Yeah, remember the guy talk we had for like an hour? I remember. I never did find out what it was about. Probably never will. It was just stuff I needed advice on. Is that all? Sorted out at least? Not really. Getting there though. Part of that was David saying shit that made me feel real uncomfortable. He just laughed it off though. What sort of things? Ty's tail started to thump behind him again, and if I had the hinting suspicion that his cheeks were going red under his fur. Stupid stuff. Come on, tell me. Whatever it was must have been good, right? Tail seems to think so. Snatching his tail so he could hold it against the bed, he sighed out. That he loved me. That he was proud of me. Proud I came asking for advice. Stuff like that. Wasn't the first time I'd done it, so it was just strange he'd say that stuff then of all times, right? Dad was the best. He was, yeah. We stared at each other for a few moments, just watching or waiting for the others to make the first move. I really am. I hope you know that. What? You really are what? Sorry. I feel like what happened just didn't. Things would be a bit different now. Different how? Dunno. Maybe. Maybe we'd have gone to the beach instead of coming here. Maybe we'd have made plans to move in somewhere together and have a place of our own. Is that something you still want? He shrugged, and I thought it over. Well, regardless of where I go, I'll keep in mind to have a spare bedroom ready and waiting if you needed it, no matter whatever boyfriend I have says. Thanks, Dave. Not pup? It feels weird to say now. You're not a kid, and you're more to me than just a pet. So, so fuck knows if I'll say it again. Well, do you prefer Ty or Tyson? He grumbled, mumbling something under barely coherent, but I caught it all the same. I just like hearing your voice. Resting my head on his shoulders, I sighed out, feeling a little better. For me, I guess, like saying, oh, uh, hmm. Oh yeah? Why's that? Well, it's your name. It's who you are, so sometimes I feel bad shortening it to just being lazy. God, you're a dork. What do you mean? You think I care about shit like that? I'm just happy that you're not calling me something worse. A broad grin formed on my face, and I was quickly silenced by another hand over my muzzle. No, that wasn't an invitation. Letting me go, he looked me over. Should I start calling you David now for the same reason? You could, but I'd rather you just stick with Dave. It's easier that way. Doesn't bother me any. You're still the same brat regardless of what I call you. Just not pup? Right. I respect you more than that. I checked the time on my phone quickly and saw that we still didn't have any reception. The thought caused me to frown, but more than that, I realized just how long we had been chatting for. Haas and Sal are probably wondering where you are. Fuck it, you are more important. I'll be fine until later. I just like that we talked things out. What happens later? Oh, well, I have a few things I need to let you guys know. I never did really get around to explaining what happened, but already I could feel the thought of Jack and his knife starting to creep in the front of my memory. Hey, it's all right. You're safe. Yeah. Yeah, I'm safe, right? I just said that. No, that's not what I meant. Something else is... Ty frowned as he watched me. I left my thought there, unsure exactly how to explain it. Well, if you're in trouble, you'd better tell me. I'm not sure, or at least not yet. What I meant is that... I groaned, rubbing my face. Tyson threw an arm over my shoulder, and that made me feel somewhat less apprehensive about the talk I needed to have with tonight. Come on, let's hang out with Rahas and Sal until you're ready. Despite the, we headed downstairs for a snack first. The idea is spend time. Okay. I'm gonna end this part here. All right. Was a nice wholesome chat with best boy Tyson. Yeah. So I'll see you all around.